It's recording. Alright, so something I want to talk about here, and I've heard Bill Maher mention this. He said there's a period of when Christianity ruled, and we call that the Dark Ages. Well, I've got a news flash for anybody who's thinks this way. Can you answer me how the Dark Ages began? When was the fall of the Roman Empire in the West? Because the Dark Ages didn't hit the Eastern Roman Empire, because that existed until, I guess you could argue up until ~14th, 15th century. But in the West, it was about, some say 397, some say 410, 415, 467, different dates given. It was precisely because of the Pagans that came in, destroyed civilization, that crushed the aqueducts, that destroyed them, that we had civilization go in decline. And the only places that the Greek works, along with the Christian texts that were being copied, were in monasteries, many of them in Ireland. There's been many books written on the topic of how Ireland saved Western civilization. The Dark Ages was explicitly caused by the Pagans. And I'm not talking about you Wiccans out there. Your religion is only 150 years old. I don't know of any modern pagans that would expose babies at birth or perform human sacrifice, or would be polytheistic. It's more of a, pantheistic animism coupled with the god and the goddess theory that aren't really conscious beings. They're just the feminine and the male of the universe and things like this. Bill Maher has made a lot of stupid comments. And Religulous, which is a movie that I love, he mentions the Horus Mithra connection to Jesus, which had been obliterated about 150 years ago and then had to get smacked down after the movie Zeitgeist. Christianity caused the Dark Ages? No, absolutely not. It was the Pagans. Just, I guess for you out there that would believe that Christendom had caused the Dark Ages, and they weren't responsible for Plato and Aristotle. And for those who say, oh, Aristotle came from the East, the Muslims, well, those who were copying it down were Christians. Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves was written by a Maronite Christian. Many works were lost. The last time the Library of Alexandria was burned down, what was permanently erased was by the Muslims, and it was the Muslims who scarred the nose of the Sphinx, seeing it as an idol. But just for those who really don't care about history and consider the Dark Ages to be the fault of Christendom, I want you to Google a few things, or Wikipedia them. the Vandals, the Visigoths, the Huns, the Lombards, the Franks, the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes. You can group these in as Anglo-Saxon. The Vikings. This was the dismantling of civilization. So Bill Maher, I know he touts himself as an intellectual, but then trying to say that Krishna was born on December 25th, and so was Mithras and Attis and Horus and all these other things, or that they were baptized or crucified or resurrected, which has been, as the words of Coughlin, Richard the Dick Coughlin says, has been brutally debunked. No, Christianity did not cause the Dark Ages. In fact, it was the only light. And I shudder when I say this because I'm Eastern Orthodox, which we hold the Crusades to be responsible for the fall of the Eastern Roman Empire, because there were more Eastern Orthodox Christians killed by the Crusaders for religious reasons than there were Jews or Muslims. How did they get all that gold to build St. Peter's before they conquered the Aztecs? They took it from Constantinople. They weakened the Roman Empire of the East until the Muslims could just come in and take it. Now, the First Crusade, yes, they tried to help out, but we can go into the First Crusade later, where they actually called for 500 knights, and actually they got thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people coming over. One of the biggest mass migrations in history before the discovering of the New World by Christopher Columbus. And yes, discovery, because it actually linked East and West. It wasn't like, a Chinese sailor that came over, or the Vikings that came over and didn't last and didn't spread their civilization. But it was, the long dark was caused by the Huns, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, the Lombards, the Franks, the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, the Vikings. Just take a look at who these people were and what they did. They're actually named after the weapons. The Saxons are named after the Sax. The Franks are named after the Franciscus, which is basically a throwing hatchet. And the Vandals, their names are still synonymous to this day. So, no. I don't like to defend Western Christianity, but the West fell due to these invasions of pagans who could not stand the fact that, well, we'll get into Christianity and human rights later on, but that seems to be largely ignored by modern populace, I guess. If you want to talk about science, without Western Christianity, the sciences wouldn't have flourished. Sorry. Galileo was persecuted because he said the sun, or because he was teaching Copernican thought. Really? That's why he was imprisoned? Crack open a history book. This is similar to saying that Abraham Lincoln was the first president, and Christopher Columbus landed on Plymouth Rock, or landed at Jamestown with on the Mayflower. It's a bunch of desperate facts that have nothing to do with each other, that you all jumble together, that kind of sounds like history. Peace to you, may God save Serbia and Syria. This has been YusefAlTahirs. And I've heard Bill Maher mention this. He said there's a period of when Christianity ruled, and we call that the Dark Ages. Well, I've got a news flash for anybody who's thinks this way. Can you answer me how the Dark Ages began? When was the fall of the Roman Empire in the West? Because the Dark Ages didn't hit the Eastern Roman Empire, because that existed until, I mean, I guess you could argue up until the 14th, 15th century. But in the West, it was it's recording. Alright, so something I want to talk about here, about, some say 397, some say 410, 415, 467, different dates given.